Good morning, everybody. So over the past summer, I was fortunate enough to get a Wilson grant and hear Daryl Davis speak while on Eckhart 36. And my life, it really changed from the moment that he had started speaking. Mr. Davis is a distinguished pianist who graduated from Howard University with a degree in music and has toured the world performing the blues. While this path was initially his calling, he found another way for his voice to change the lives of countless people. Since the 1980s, Mr. Davis has dedicated his life to having the conversations that everyone is afraid to have. As a Christian and a musician, he has been able to use what he has in common to communicate with members of one of the most renowned racist groups in American history, the Ku Klux Klan. By showing respect to the very people who would deny his existence, Mr. Davis has been able to engage over 200 KKK members in conversation. In doing so, he has guided them as they renounce their membership to the KKK. So much of the hate in the world today exists because of ignorance, and this ignorance has caused people to fear one another. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other, and they don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other." Mr. Davis has made it his life's work to create opportunities for people from very different backgrounds to get to know each other. This in turn will help to end the ignorance-based hate we bear witness to every day. While change takes time, it begins with each of us listening to one another's stories, recognizing the value of each other and every human being. Today we will hear Daryl Davis' story and take another step towards improving race relations in our country. He will be speaking tonight in the theater at 7 o'clock, and I promise you, listening to his story will change your life. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Daryl Davis to MBA.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. I've been to Nashville before, but not to Montgomery Bell, so thank you all very, very much for having me. And I'll start by just giving you a little bit of background on me, but before I do that, I want to say that I, as an adult, really want to apologize to each and every one of you for how my generation has left you all inherited with a lot of things going on today that should never go on, that you should never see. You know, we have metal detectors in high schools where I live, in the Washington, D.C. area. Well, we have people going into churches and shooting people, or in synagogues, or even in someone's private home having a Hanukkah party. You know, you feel unsafe anywhere. You go to a party and get stabbed, you go to a synagogue to worship or to a church and get shot. You know, these things did not happen, you know, when I was a child. Yeah, you know, we had our problems, and but things like this just did not happen. And you know, you all have never seen the day where you go to the airport and have to go through security checks. I remember those days. Just go get on the plane. No big deal. So we fought, our generation and my parents' generation. I think it probably stopped with my parents' generation. They fought very, very hard for the right to vote, for the right to sit in the front of the bus, for the right to be served in a restaurant and be able to walk in the front door as opposed to the back door and use the same restrooms as anybody else. But then my generation comes along and we kind of drop the ball. And things that should have been addressed decades ago, I'm 61, things that should have been addressed decades ago, we failed to address. And now we're left with society the way it is. And so for that, I want to apologize. But, because you all have inherited it, and when you all leave here and get on with your professional lives, I'm hoping you all will make those improvements in society so that people who come after you will not have to deal with the kinds of things that you all have to deal with and we have to deal with now for lack of addressing them when they happened. I've been doing this kind of work for about 35 years. I'm a professional musician. As you heard, I got my degree in jazz from Howard University, and I make a living performing all over the world and around this country. But while music is my profession, my obsession has been trying to improve race relations. The background that I have is this. When I was a child, at the age of 10, I was in 4th grade, I joined the Cub Scouts. and I was the only black scout anywhere in the area. And we were in Belmont, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston, say like maybe Hendersonville to Nashville. And it was the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Brownies, Girl Scouts, 4-H Club, and some other organizations. We marched from Lexington to Concord, Massachusetts, to commemorate the ride of Paul Revere. The streets were blocked off. People lined the sidewalk, waving at and cheering at us. I was the only black scout, only black person anywhere around. And people were yelling, the British are coming, and waving. Everything was fine. But suddenly, somewhere down this parade route, I began getting hit with bottles and rocks and soda pop cans by a small group of spectators off to my right on the sidewalk. I remember it being maybe 2 or 3 kids, maybe my age or a year or so older, and some adults who were throwing things. I assumed it was kids and their parents. But I was so naive that I did not realize that I was the only scout getting hit. I thought those people over there didn't like the scouts. That's how naive I was. It wasn't until my den mother, my cub master, my troop leader all came running and huddled over me with their bodies and escorted me out of the danger that I realized I was the sole target, because nobody else around me was getting that special protection. And I kept saying, why? Why are they doing this? Why? I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. All they would say is, Daryl, shh, move along, hurry up. It'll be okay. They never answered my question. So you know, at the age of 10, we've all been 10, if you have a question, you have to have an answer immediately. And if nobody is providing the answer for you, then you begin to create your own answers in order to placate your curiosity. So I'm coming up with all kinds of excuses. Okay, I'm the new kid on the block. I've only been there a couple months, so maybe they're testing me out. I had every answer but the right answer. So when I got home, my mother and father, who were not at the march parade, were cleaning me up, putting Band-Aids on me, and asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? Pardon my voice, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold. I told them I did not fall down. I told them exactly what happened. For the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. Believe it or not, I had never heard the term racism. And my parents had given me a wonderful life. I was never exposed to a lot of the things that they had to deal with. So I'd never heard the term racism. When they told me why this was happening to me, for the first time in my life, I thought my parents were lying to me. I did not believe them. My 10-year-old brain could not get around the idea that someone who had never laid eyes on me, someone who had never spoken to me, someone who knew absolutely nothing about me, would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than this, the color of my skin. It made no sense. And the few white people over here on the sidewalk that were doing that did not look any different to me than my classmates in school or my other friends or whatever. So my parents had to be making this up. Why they were lying, I didn't know, but they were lying, because people don't do things like that. So this was 1968. About a month and a half later, that same year, Martin Luther King was assassinated on April the 4th. And every major city in this country, including Nashville, Washington, D.C., my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, nearby Boston to where we were, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Richmond, New York, Los Angeles, all burned to the ground with destruction and violence, all in the name of this thing called racism. So now I realized that my parents had not lied to me. This thing called racism does exist, but I didn't know why. Why are people racist? Yes, okay, it's here, but why? So I formed a question in my mind at the age of 10. That question was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And for the next 51 years, I've been looking for the answer. I bought a vast collection of books on black supremacy, on white supremacy, on anti-Semitism, on racism, on the Nazis in Germany, on neo-Nazis over here, the Ku Klux Klan. Anybody who felt that their skin color or religion or what have you gave them superiority over someone of a different belief or look, I want to know about. Where does it come from? None of my books answered the question. So later on, after I graduated college, as I said, music was my profession, but studying race was my obsession. There were no courses you could take. There's no such thing as Race 101 or whatever. They don't even offer that today. So I had to self-educate. And I decided, you know what? Who better to go to get an answer to that question that nobody else can seem to answer? Why? How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Who better to ask than someone who would go so far as to join an organization that has over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them or who don't believe as they believe. So I decided I'm going to seek out members and leaders of the Ku Klux Klan, because for sure they would have the answer, because that's all they do. So I chanced to meet some, and it took a while. You know, people just don't sit down and start talking to you. So I had meetings with them, I interviewed them, I wrote a book on them. The book came out back in the 90s. I'm working on the second copy now with updates and things like that. So I interviewed Klan people where I was in Maryland, up north, down south, Midwest, and West, trying to get the answers to how can you hate me when you don't even know me. There were those who would sit down and talk to me. There were those who refused to talk to me. And there were those who wanted to fight me just for showing up. So I saw the whole gamut. Once I established relationships with some of them, some of the leaders, they began inviting me to Klan rallies. So I'd go to these Klan rallies, and they'd be in their robes and hoods. There'd be a big wooden cross. The cross is wrapped in burlap. The burlap has been soaked in what they call Klan cologne, which is actually diesel fuel or kerosene. And they have torches. And they march around the cross in a clockwise motion. And one of the leaders will say, "Klansmen, halt," and they all stop. Klansmen face the cross, and they turn inwards to the circle. Klansmen approach the cross, and these Klansmen and Klanswomen approach the cross. And then he'll say, "For my God," and they all repeat, "For my God," "For my race, for my race," "For my clan, for my clan," "For my country, for my country," "White power, white power." Klansmen light the cross, and they toss their torches down at the foot of the cross, and then whoosh, this thing is aflame. And they stand around and admire it for a while, and then give some lectures. And I'm just sitting there, watching all this, and taking notes, and taking pictures for my book. Now I'm going to show you, this is about 25, 27 years ago. This is in Maryland. I had a little more hair on my head and a little less meat in my stomach. That's towards the end of a rally. This next one was 3 years ago in the state of Missouri, towards the end of the rally. There are a lot more there than what you see right there. The rally's more or less ending there, overeating, picnicking, or whatever in their little setup. So what do I do at these things? I talk with people. What I have found is that we spend way too much time talking about the other person, or talking at the other person, or talking past the other person. Why don't we spend some time talking with the other person? That's what I do there. Now, I've been doing this now for 30 to 35 years. CNN, the cable news network, knew who I was through music. I've had the great pleasure of having my own band and working with many other musicians. some very notable, some you never heard of. But perhaps you've heard of the man who invented rock and roll. Without him, you would not have Elvis Presley. You would not have the Rolling Stones, or Led Zeppelin, or Elton John, or the Beatles. I'm talking about Charles Edward Anderson Berry, Chuck Berry. Had the great pleasure of playing for him. So they knew who I was through music. They knew who Roger Kelly was through his activities in the Klan. Roger Kelly, when I met him, he was known as a Grand Dragon. Grand Dragon means state leader. He was the state leader for Maryland, which is the state where I live right now. He got promoted over the years to Imperial Wizard, and he was my first interview. So over time, he would invite me to Klan rallies and explain how things worked, etc., for my book, which I was very appreciative of his time for. So CNN called me and said, hey, we've heard about you. You know, we think it's interesting, a black musician and a Klan leader getting together. Would you consider letting us do a story on you? I said, fine. They said, when's the next time you're going to a rally? I said, well, I'll let you know when I find out. So sometime later, I was invited to a rally, and I called CNN, and they said, well, we want to come. It was on a Saturday that particular summer. And they said, are you performing anywhere with your band on Friday night? I said, sure. And they came to my gig Friday night and filmed the band, and then came to my house because they wanted to show what I normally do, which is play music. So they came to my house Saturday morning, and they followed me 2 hours up the road to this Klan rally. And Roger Kelly, who was the Imperial Wizard by then, they said, do you think Mr. Kelly will even talk to us? I said, I'll do better than that. When the rally is over, I will get Roger Kelly, the Imperial Wizard, to come back to my house. And you can interview the head of the Klan inside a black man's house. They're like, okay, that's different. So it was. And they filmed the whole rally. When the rally was over, I approached Mr. Kelly, told him what was going on. And he said, yeah. He drove back to my house by himself. Usually he travels with protection, a bodyguard, etc. But he came back to my house by himself and sat in my basement and interviewed with CNN. Excuse me. And this clip was shown on CNN and on HLN, Headline News, every hour for 24 hours all over the world. And I'm going to show it to you right now. But I want you to pay particular attention to what Roger Kelly says. He says that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for many years. He went on to say how he believes in separation of the races, because he finds that to be in the best interest of all races. But towards the end, he said something very interesting about respect. I won't say it was a learning moment, but it was a teaching moment at that particular time. So listen to what Mr. Kelly says, and also listen to what the two CNN news desk anchor people have to say about it.
This is CNN.
Welcome to this final hour of CNN Sunday Morning. I'm Bob Kane, and today for Miles O'Brien.
Good morning to you all. I'm Joey Chen.
Friendship can transcend all kinds of boundaries.
Just look at us. And two men in Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle reports.
Daryl Davis plays a hot piano. It's part of the show, and it makes him stand out. He also stands out here. Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
It's been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange soda after a Klan rally. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another and we do different things, it hasn't changed my views about the Klan, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years.
Kelly and his Klan friends go to hear Davis and his band. And Davis goes to their rallies.
I sat on the front row and listened to each Klansman speak. Some things I agreed with, other things I did not agree with.
Davis thinks that his presence promotes badly needed understanding.
Hate stems, I believe, from fear of the unknown, and I think this is all across the board, regardless of whether it's a Klansman or anything else.
But he has no illusions about the Klan. If he did, his friend would be quick to disabuse them.
And I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will follow that man to hell and back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective, strange.
Certainly that.
Okay, that was the clip. Now, you heard Mr. Kelly say that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been what? Cemented in his mind for years. And he went on to say how he believes in separation of the races, as he finds that to be in the best interest of all races. But towards the end, did you hear him say that he respected me? Huh? What's that all about? I'm black, he's a Klansman, I'm his enemy, but yet he respected me. Let me tell you something. When I first met Roger Kelly, a couple years before that rally, when he was still a Grand Dragon, and I interviewed him for my book, I asked him, within 10 minutes of my meeting him, I asked him, I said, how can you hate me, when you don't even know me? You see me, and first thing you see is my skin color, and already you have an animus towards me. I mean, how is this possible? You know what I was told? I was told because black people are criminals. We're prone to crime. And that's why there are more black people in prison than white people. That's his perspective. Yeah, there are more black people in prison than white people, but that's not the reason. But it is to him, because that's what he sees. Then he wanted to say that black people are lazy. We don't want to work. We prefer to scam the government welfare system. I sat there and I listened. And then he tells me that black people have smaller brains than white people. Okay? Well, when he got done telling me all the reasons why he hates me without getting to know me, and all he sees is my skin color, I let him know I don't have a criminal record. I have never been on welfare. I've never measured my brain, but I'm pretty sure it's the same size as anybody else's. So I let him chew on that for a while. But that was 2 years before this. We would keep meeting, keep talking, etc. Now I'm at a rally, and he's telling everybody in the audience and all his Klan members that he respects me. He said, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Very important, folks. If you don't take anything else home with you today, take that home with you, and apply it in your everyday life. When you encounter somebody with an opposing point of view, an adversarial point of view, it doesn't have to be about race. It could be about anything, any hot topic out here: abortion, the pending war in Iran, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, nuclear weapons, global warming, the current presidency, whatever. There are all these hot topics. You're on one side, somebody else is on the other side. Give that person a platform. Allow them to air their views and listen to them. If you agree with them, fine, no problem. If you don't agree with them, that's fine too, still no problem. You challenge them, but you don't challenge them rudely or violently. You say, look, I need more clarification as to why you think I should believe that way. Give me more explanation. And when you do things like that, I can almost guarantee you they will reciprocate and allow you to give your platform. So you make sure you've done your homework so that when you present your platform to them, you do it in an intelligent and influential manner. Because at the end of the day, you each must think about what the other person said. Now, when he was telling me 2 years prior to that rally that I'm on welfare, I'm a criminal, my brain is small, was what he was saying offensive? Of course it was offensive. Should I have been offended? Absolutely not. And you know why I didn't take offense to it? Because I know who I am. He doesn't know me. He only met me 10 minutes ago. For me to allow him to define me like that and me start attacking that, that's giving him credibility. That's empowering him and proving his point. So, and that would have shut down my whole interview. So I listen. I know who I am. Nobody can define me if they don't know me, especially not somebody who I just met 10 minutes ago, and he's going to tell me that I'm a criminal and less intelligent and on welfare. So why should I take offense to somebody who is spewing an untruth? That's the difference when you go to talk with an adversary. Don't get into a tit-for-tat confrontation. Let them air their views, because eventually they'll hang themselves if they're wrong with their words. So here he is telling the people that he respects me. Understand something. I did not respect what Roger Kelly had to say. I'm not a racist, I'm not a separatist, a nationalist, any of those things, supremacist. I did not respect what he had to say, but I respected his right to say it. You understand the difference? Okay? We don't have to agree with what people say, but we should agree to allow them to air that view. And as a result of that, he listened to me. Again, he said, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those are his words. If we had never sat down and listened to each other, we would have gotten nowhere. As a result of that mutual respect of listening to one another, we each have to think about what the other person says. He began to struggle with his belief system based upon some of the things that I told him. He would think, you know, Daryl's got a point there. And he would explore it and find out that what I told him was true and what he was believing was wrong. And he struggled with that for a while. And that cement that held his ideas together began to crack. And then it cracked so much it crumbled and fell apart. And then guess what? Roger Kelly quit the Ku Klux Klan because he no longer believed in what he had said on that video about being separate, have separate races and all this, and all those ideas that were held together in his mind by cement. They all vanished. When Roger Kelly left the Ku Klux Klan, he gave me his robe and hood. This is the same robe that you saw him wearing in the video clip, the robe of the Imperial Wizard. And of course, this is what's called the hood. It's also called a helmet. Both words are synonymous in this case. This is the hood, and this is the mask. Members who want anonymity, they don't want you to know who they are, they wear this mask and peep at you through these eyelets. So they see you, you don't see them. If they don't care that their identity is revealed, the mask is attached by 3 snaps or Velcro. Just detach it, and the face is exposed under the hood. And you saw both types on that video clip. I have a ton of these robes and hoods from people that I've met who are active members of the KKK. And dialogue, not fighting, yelling, and screaming, and trying to beat racism out of somebody. That does not work. Conversation, listening to each other, respectfully listening, as Roger Kelly said. We don't agree on everything, but at least we respect each other to sit down and listen to each other. And that's how that worked. That's how he came to that conclusion that he no longer believed in what he'd been preaching for so many years. And now he's out of it. So I encourage you all to take time to talk with somebody. Don't shut down and don't say, we go here and we go there, but we don't bring up that topic. All you're doing is hiding it. It's going to come out eventually anyway. So talk about it, but learn how to talk about it civilly, civil discourse. Now, the 2 CNN anchor people, they implied that I was strange. That's okay, because if being strange causes people to give up stuff like this, we all need to be strange. You realize that we are in the 21st century? We put a man on the moon. And we could talk to Neil Armstrong. While Neil Armstrong was up there walking around on the moon, talking about 1 small step for a man and 1 giant leap for mankind, we were able to talk to him from right here on Earth, live, all the way to the moon, via satellite radio phone. Everybody in here has email. Everybody in here has a cell phone. Hit a few words, hit a few numbers, hit send, and you're talking to people right next door in the next state over, or California, New York, Australia, Europe, Africa, China, wherever you want. How is it that we can talk to people as far away as the moon or all around the face of this earth, but yet we have difficulty talking to the person who lives right next door because he or she is a different color, a different religion, a different persuasion, a different whatever? So let's think about that. Now, I told you I was a professional musician, and that's how I met a lot of these people, because everybody likes music. People in the Klan, people not in the Klan. And some of these people would show up at some of my gigs that I would play. So I'm going to demonstrate to you one of the styles of music that I perform. It's a style of jazz from way back, known as Boogie Woogie. And Boogie Woogie became rock and roll. Rock and roll with a backbeat to the Boogie Woogie. It's a form of jazz where you improvise. You have a bass line going, or what's called in classical music a basso ostinato, a repetitive bass line. And against that bass line, you improvise with your other hand. And so this is the kind of music that I would play behind Chuck Berry's guitar when I would work with him. He'd be playing Johnny B. Good or Roll Over Beethoven, and I'd play this rock and roll boogie woogie piano. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate it. I hope you all will come back this evening, or tell your parents, tell your friends. It'll be a much longer program. I'll show you a lot more things, and I'll show you the process that I go through, because I just took you from A to Z without all the other letters in between. But tonight, I'll show you the whole process and show you some other video clips that you might be very impressed with. But keep that in mind, talk with people, not about them, not at them, and not past them. Thank you all. Appreciate it.